Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Financial Juneteenth, and you know that I believe deeply in economic empowerment, particularly for people of color. And there was this exciting new film that someone told me about called 7 a.m., created by Mr. Jason Black. And I saw the trailer, and I saw people in the film that really piqued my interest, and I really wanted to know more about it. And fortunately, a friend of a friend of a friend connected all of us together to have this conversation. And to speak on the film as a representative is Mr. Tariq Nasheed. Now, you might know Tariq as the creator of the widely popular film Hidden Colors, which I might even actually call this the Black Film of the Year. Really, the film of the year. Forget Black Film of the Year. It's been enormously successful. And so first I want to ask Mr. Nasheed, how you doing today, brother?
I'm good, family. How you doing this morning, this afternoon where you are, by the way?
I know, right? Morning, afternoon. It's all the same, man. You know, when you're on that 24-hour grind, it's like I can't tell the difference between morning, afternoon, weekends, weekdays. It's all the same, you know. But I'm doing very well, brother, very well. So, I guess we could kind of start from the beginning. A lot of people know about the great work you're doing. It's very empowering for people of color. I have a lot of respect for it, and so first I want to ask. Okay, so the creators of the film asked you to kind of serve as a representative or a spokesperson in this particular conversation about the film. So let's start with that. What's your relationship to the project? First
Yeah,
and
well,
foremost.
I'm on. I got on with this project as a producer. I'm one of the co-producers of the film, and I find projects like this, and I try to back them because I think things like this are very important. We don't have enough films like this, and I'm always talking about group economics, group support. So I have to put my money where my mouth is. I have to walk the walk if I'm going to talk the talk. So I go out of my way to promote and produce projects like this, and I think it's that important. A film like this it's in the same vein as Hidden Colors, but it takes it a step further because this one, 7 a.m., is about group economics. It's about finance. It's about creating an economic base. In our films, the Hidden Colors films, we would talk briefly about economic empowerment and the importance of an economic base on top of knowing your history, on top of understanding education. And the good thing about this film is going to talk about economics throughout the whole film. And there are some people who were in Hidden Colors in this film. We got Umar Johnson in this film. We got the great legendary Claude Anderson in this film, who was in the Hidden Colors movies. So I just thought that this film was very important, and I wanted to put my stamp of approval on it.
Well, let's start with the title. 7 a.m. What's the significance of that?
7 a.m. is basically saying that, hey, it's morning time. It's time for Black folks to wake up. So that's where the 7 a.m. significance comes in, because we have to wake up. It's beyond. It's not even early. It's late. We're late in the game, and we out here trying to figure out how to sidestep white supremacy. Black people are still making excuses for not dealing with white supremacy. And we keep trying to figure out how to deal with this system of white supremacy. We try to go toe to toe with it militarily. We can't do that because we're outgunned and outsourced as far as that. We try to deal with it on a media level, but we have to deal with them on a financial level. We have to insulate ourselves economically and use our economy to protect ourselves when dealing with this system.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, somebody had brought something up to me that we looked into, as part of Financial Juneteenth, which was they said, everybody puts so much emphasis on voting as a sort of key to equality and civil rights and all that. And I'm not here to debate, the importance of voting one way or the other, but it was interesting because the person also said, well, Asian Americans actually have among the lowest voter participation rates of any ethnic group, but because they know how to keep their money in their community, they're actually doing better economically than every other ethnic group. Can you kind of speak to that concept and how this is kind of related in the film?
Yeah, see, the thing is with voting, and Brother Claude Anderson has talked about this a lot, voting means nothing if you don't have an economy to back it up. Because when it comes to voting, you got to put money together and have an agenda behind that money. Just like in Hollywood, we saw those emails that they were talking about President Barack Obama the other day. They were talking greasy about Obama. They were going to have a fundraiser, some type of fundraiser for him. See, it ain't about them liking anybody. It's not about them voting for anybody. It's about them putting the money behind somebody to get their agendas met. And other groups think like this. The gay community, they put together a lot of money for President Barack Obama, and this is why he would talk about a lot of gay issues. Abel Langora and a whole bunch of other Hispanic business people, they put together money for President Barack Obama, and he talks about immigration and things that are reflective of the Hispanic community. But we can't get nothing, no acknowledgement of all these brothers and sisters being killed and beat up by law enforcement. We don't have anything from the president. Why? Because I don't think we backed him up financially. We didn't put any money together and say, hey, this is our agenda. And that's the biggest mistake we make. We think just going out and voting is going to be the answer. Even though we're a small group within the Americas, that doesn't mean that we can't have a powerful influence economically. If you know the mafia, they were a marginalized group. The Italians were a marginalized group when they came over. They created an underground economy called organized crime, and they understood the importance of buying off politicians. This is why they were protected to a certain degree, to the point where J. Edgar Hoover wouldn't even acknowledge the existence of the mafia. They had all these people bought off. So if you look at history, he never even acknowledged they existed, let alone go after them. So that's because they used their economy to buy these cops off, and they knew how to pay off judges. And I'm not saying that we should do all that, but I'm saying that we should do that in a legal way. We should get politicians on our side, buy politicians like Dr. Claude Anderson says, and stop just depending on the vote, because we can vote all day, but if we're not paying these people salaries, literally, we're not going to get anything coming to us.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, America is a capitalist society, and a capitalist society, and actually, more technically, I would define it as a capitalist democracy. But it's more capitalist than it is democratic, and really, we are to the point that you mentioned, where the capitalism has bought out our democracy. Our politicians are bought and paid for. Let me ask you this: I saw Dr. Johnson, Umar Johnson, I consider him to be a great black man. I'm constantly defending him, against people that don't like the fact that he's not as politically correct as they want. But personally, I think political correctness gets in the way of truth. And he mentioned, he actually quoted Marcus Garvey, I believe in a segment of the film where he said, show me your economic condition and I'll show you your political condition. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit in terms of not just that quote and what Garvey was saying, but also Dr. Johnson's role in this film?
It's neat. Well, we all know Marcus Garvey. Well, it's not publicly known. Not only with the Back to Africa movement he was getting together, Garvey was trying to get banks established, black banks going, because he knew that we would need loans and we would need an economic foundation in order to maintain our independence. And that was very dangerous at the time. With Garvey, just like Brother Umar and people like me, the white supremacists would send the bougie class after Marcus Garvey to dissipate that energy. The W.B. Du Bois, those crowds, they were really sabotaging the Marcus Garvey movement. And when you look at it, they talked real greasy about Marcus Garvey back then. They were calling the man apes, and these were black people calling him this. But these were the people who were under the wings of the white supremacists, the dominant white society. And even now, you have people like Umar, and like you said, people have a problem with him not being politically correct. These are a lot of people who work for the establishment. You know what I'm saying? And these same people, they have a problem with me. So
me too. Go ahead, brother.
So any black person who's trying to create a system of independence, the white supremacists will send their bougie Negroes first. But Umar's role in the film is very significant because not only does he talk about the economic significance of black empowerment, he goes really deep with the educational component, and he talks about how, because he's an educator, he's worked in the school system for a long time, and he talks about how we're miseducated at a very young age and some of the strategies that the white supremacists will use to create economic and educational deprivation for black folks. We got to understand this. Black people, we think like, we try to make other people think like us. We, as black folks, we don't really target children in a negative way, of no race. We don't target children and try to miseducate them or basically psychologically terrorize them. Unfortunately, there are many people in the dominant society when they get our children, they deliberately try to miseducate them, all in the name of white supremacy. Yeah, we see what people say about the people like Mike Brown and the Trayvon Martins and the Tamir Rice and people like that. We hear people call these young men thugs and these children thugs and gangsters and hoodlums, and we don't understand that these people are having a psychological and literal war with us. So it's very important that brothers like Umar Johnson and other people in the film bring the truth to that.
It is interesting because it does. My feeling that the more I think about this every day, and I'd love to get your take on this. Is I'm convinced that war has always been declared against not just black people, but specifically the black male.
Yeah.
I would argue that when a black male is focused, when he's empowered, when he's determined, he becomes a serious threat, really to national security. I mean, they definitely to white supremacy, and so I think about when you look at what's happening right now in the country with so many millions of people mobilizing behind this issue with Michael Brown, Eric Garner. You have these black men. And not just not bougie black men, not wealthy black men. You're talking about brothers who were in the struggle in the streets, and all these people are really fighting on behalf of their humanity. And you're not just seeing the protesters, but you're actually seeing athletes and entertainers getting involved, which is something we haven't seen for 30 or 40 years. And I can't help but to feel that there are some people who are really panicking over this. Because, as you mentioned, this educational or slash indoctrinational process that says, we're educating you in a certain way because we want to brainwash you. That's really been applied, I think, most successfully towards black athletes. We want you focused on rims and women and weed and liquor, because you're not going to focus on trying to protest. But now you've got the athletes wearing the "I Can't Breathe" T-shirt. So I want to ask you that, do you feel that in the United States that really collectively there is just this massive transformation taking place, and do you think it's sustainable?
I hope it's sustainable. I hope it is, because it's something that's very enlightening and it's refreshing to see. And you made a good point about athletes. Athletes in particular are targeted and isolated very early, and they're indoctrinated very early. So when athletes go to college, the scouts and all these people, they grab them and they say, okay, look, you ain't like those people over there. You're special. We're going to give you all types of goodies and cars and women and all this stuff, just so you will know that you're not like those people over there. So they isolate them very early. And then when they get contracts for the NBA or the NFL, they're isolated even more. They're told, okay, look, you need to be with us if you want to have your money grow. Stay out of those clubs. Stay out of the hood. Stay out of the places over there with them. Don't be political like them. Don't do the hands up, don't shoot sign. Don't do that. You're bigger than that. You're going to mess your brand up. So athletes are told early on and throughout their career, don't mess your brand up, your brand. So they're isolated. And what happens is when they're discarded by the dominant society, now these brothers don't have a base no more. They don't have any support. They don't have an economic base. They don't have a support system. And then they fall by the wayside. And this is why so many athletes go broke after they retire or they're put out of the game. So it's very smart that these brothers start to wake up and create that support system and maintain that support system in the black community, because some people are starting to wake up that no matter how much they say they like you in the dominant society, they can kick you to the curb at any given moment. And Bill Cosby learned that the hard way.
Bill Cosby, Tiger Woods, O.J. Simpson. You're right. I mean, you think about these guys. I mean, these guys were, America's favorite Negroes, and then once the table turned, it was pretty ugly to watch it, kind of go down the way it did. And when you talk about athletes, I'm reminded of when I first started writing. I was a student at the University of Kentucky. And I remember at that time we had a basketball team that went to the Final Four a couple times. Literally, I think we went to the championship game, I think 2 or 3 years in a row or something crazy like that. I mean, the basketball program it's really like a professional sports program down there. If you follow your sports, you know what I'm talking about. And I remember a couple things from talking to athletes. Was number one, I remember an athlete telling me specifically that the coaches did not want them reading my articles. They didn't want these ideas in their head, these ideas of athletes deserving to be paid, or these issues that was going on in the black community, and you have to really be skeptical of anybody that doesn't want you to have access to information so you can engage in free thought and make your own decision. And the second thing I remember was that at the time we had a massive student protest because there was a black woman who was physically attacked and whatnot, and we went to the athletes for help because we said, look, if one of you guys just says one word about this, it'll really help us in our cause. And so many of them were just afraid to be involved at all. One guy, I think Nazi Muhammad, who's in the NBA now, he was the only one that did a little bit, and I respected that. But the rest of them were just so afraid of the penalty that would come from their overseer if they did engage in any of this, that they just backed away. And so when you see, guys like Charles Barkley, saying the things that he's been saying in public, it's one thing if he remains silent. I think people will forgive him for not saying anything, but the fact that he went out of his way to to disrupt the energy that people already had was a problem. And then when you contrast that with his background, this dude was a thug. This guy was in so many situations where he could have easily been another Eric Garner. You are another 6'4", 300-pound black man yourself who said, "I will kick a cop's ass," and you're lucky that cop didn't beat you and kill you on that day. The only reason he didn't do that was because, as you mentioned, he was insulated. He was playing for the Rockets, so they weren't going to kill one of their players. So I think that's it's an interesting dynamic you describe, and I didn't mean to go on that tangent. But
that's real talk.
And
with Barkley, see, the thing is, a lot of times when people criticize the black community, if you're doing it from a place of love and a place of growth, we can accept that. We can take a little tough love. But if you preface your criticism by saying, well, I tell my white friends all the time, you ain't the problem. Now you just buck dancing. You dig? And that's the problem. That's why people aren't really messing with Barkley like that, because he's doing it not to criticize in a constructive way. It's just showing out for your white benefactors. And that's plantation Sambo stuff. And it should be called out. And people think that Sambo nonsense is going to save you from the white supremacy lottery. The white supremacy lottery can pick any of us. The white supremacy lottery is what I call when white folks, or the white supremacists, because all white people are not racist. You have white people and you have white supremacists. The white supremacists can pick out any black person, anytime, anywhere, and distribute vehement, blatant displays of white supremacy against that person. They can lock them up. They can do what they did to Bill Cosby. They can start sabotaging your career. They can kill you. They can do anything to you simply because they're the white supremacists. And no black people are immune to that. So black people think if I just buck dance and just co-sign white supremacy, I'll get a pass and they won't pick me. Bill Cosby thought that because Bill Cosby, for the last 10 years, was going on this black people are the problem rant. Black people need to pull up their pants rant. And the dominant society, they gave him enough rope to hang himself. They gave him all the airtime he needed. They were co-signing him left and right. And what they were doing is creating a situation where he left his black base. A lot of black people started abandoning Bill Cosby in the last 10 years because we said, okay, damn, if you're going to keep dumping on us like that, well, all right, what do you, Bill? And when they saw that his black base was gone, that's when they attacked him. This whole thing with these rape allegations and they're blaming it on this Hannibal Buress guy, this has nothing to do with Hannibal. They were planning on doing this to Bill Cosby all along because Bill Cosby is sitting on, like $500 million? You dig? So they're not going to just let you pass that down without a struggle because they gave it to you. We got to understand that. When the dominant society gives you something, they're going to try their best to take it back. This is why when you see a lot of major entertainers who were given, and look at the word given, these millions of dollars, and we just got these big contracts within the last 40, 45 years. After the 1960s, this is when a lot of black entertainers started getting a lot of money. Since the 80s, this is when a lot of black athletes started getting money. So we haven't been in a situation where we've been able to pass money down. I'm talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars to the next generation yet. And you notice every time a black person gets to a certain age, all of a sudden they get sabotaged if they are a multi-million-dollar entertainer, or they die mysteriously, like Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson. You understand? So we got to look at this stuff. I look at the conspiratorial aspect of it too, because white supremacy is all about keeping resources away from black folks. That's what we have to understand. It's about keeping resources away from us. They come up with different ways to keep us economically disenfranchised. And this is why we go back to the movie. It's important for us to create our own economic base, something that the white supremacists can't so easily sabotage or destroy.
Well, I think that what you're saying, you're making an excellent point. And I'm glad you really took that back to the movie because I want to tell you, about something that I went through, and I want you to, I guess contextualize that within the framework of this film, which I plan to see this. I suggest other people check it out because the trailer is extraordinary. I'm gonna put the trailer along with this interview. I can say this. Like a lot of black men, I went through my own struggle of dealing with my own indoctrination, where I had all the education, but I was being trained to think in a certain way. And fortunately, I became cognizant of that in my 20s. But I was very frustrated. I spent a lot of years going through the physical and mental anguish that so many black men go through when you're trying to figure out how to navigate this system, where you're expected to bow your head and pretty much emasculate yourself in order to make somebody else feel comfortable. That didn't work for me. I couldn't do it, so I was getting fired for no reason. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. Here's what I found that really changed my life. I found that when I worked for white folks, racism really bothered me. I would talk about all the time about what these people were doing, and they won't let me do that, and they won't let me do this. When I learned how to make my own money, I literally became far less concerned with what white people were doing. Racism didn't really bother me that much. I mean, I'll write about racism, white supremacy. That's what I do every day. But in terms of my day to day life, my psychological and physical well being, I am a very happy, healthy person because I have something that money cannot really buy you, or maybe it can buy you if you spend it the right way, which is freedom. That freedom, I think people underestimate that. Can you talk about that in the context of the film?
Yes, indeed, brother. When I was over in Holland, I was in Holland doing a couple of lectures last week, and I was talking about how important it is to create an economic base here because they're going through the same stuff we're going through. They go through police brutality. And there's a lot of black people over there, too, by the way. And I was telling them about how important it is to create an economic base, and this is how you kind of combat white supremacy. And a lot of brothers and sisters were trying to say, okay, well, how do we explain to white people that this is wrong, and how do we let them know that it's hurting us, and how do we come to them? And I'm like, it ain't about going to them. I'm not here to change any white person's mind at all. That's not the answer. We can't change people's minds. And that's the thing with black people over here too. We want to go and make this plea and make our debate and let people know how good we are and we're not all bad. Damn that. I'm all about getting our economics together, so I don't give a damn what they think about me, you, or anybody. We're not going to be affected by them because we have our own economy. We're not dependent on them, and we're not going to have to worry about them waking up one day having an attitude about black folks, and then we be affected by that. That's over. We got to stop doing that. This is why the movie 7 a.m. talks about creating an economic base. Because sitting up begging people to have some type of humanity that they may or may not have, that's not living. That's you on a plantation waiting on massa to have a good day. And we don't. That's over with right now.
Wow, I agree with that 100%, and I'm not gonna say a word about it because I definitely want people to hear your thoughts on it. But I mean, everything you just said, to me, I think it does reflect the fact that this is not so much just an intellectual exercise to gain your liberation. It has to be a spiritual one as well, and it does tie back to the economic liberation because if you're not able to understand what's going on and attain that spiritual freedom, then your education and your economic situation will not work to your benefit, right? You look at, for example, a guy like a Jay-Z who has more money than I know he's got more money than me. I don't know if he's got more money than you, but because Hidden Colors did pretty well, but but Jay-Z's got all that money, but it almost seems that for some people, more money just makes you a bigger slave. It enslaves you even more than you were when you were poor. Sometimes in poverty you can have more freedom than you can in wealth. Now I want to ask you about yourself. This is my last question because I know you're a busy man and I'm gonna let you go after this. But where did you come from? And when I ask that, I mean not just your upbringing in terms of how you were raised and where you were raised, but just where did you learn the things that you learned that made you into the person that you are right now?
Man, really, I came up out here on the streets of LA, lived in South Central Compton, lived all over here. So I learned a lot of stuff. I was hanging out with the street dudes and all that. And then I got known for writing relationship books. I would write these dating books that were very tongue in cheek, that were real controversial. My first book was called The Art of Mackin'. And that book came out in like 2000. It was a huge bestseller, big book. And it came out at a time where all the books were about men are from Mars, women are from Venus, all these sensitive books. So I come out of nowhere with a book called The Art of Mackin', How to Be a Player. And the people freaked out over this book. But after they read the book, they saw the metaphor. It's just really about having a tight mouthpiece and just being a man and just having good conversation. And the book sold like 500,000 copies. And then I wrote 5 more books that were bestsellers. So I still am a relationship guy. So I had a great career doing that. But one thing I always noticed that people would always bring the racial comments to me like, hey, how does this game work? Does it work for white guys? How do I talk to Mexican women? People would bring up all these crazy racial questions about the book. And I noticed that any type of people activity, race would always pop up somewhere. When you talk about education, race would pop up. When you talk about labor, race would pop up. How come black people are not being employed? How come black people are being discriminated against in the workplace? When you talk about war, the race question would come up. So all roads would always lead to race. And I would travel a lot just as a hobby. I just like to travel around, and I would see all of this stuff, this information about black folks that was not being shown in the mainstream media. And this was just a hobby. I just like to read and travel. And I knew a lot about history, so I said, okay, let me step away from the books for a minute, and let me talk about history, because I went to Australia, just vacationing and chilling, and I saw that I saw genocide right there in my face, and I saw the people's attitudes towards it. I didn't see a lot of the Aborigine people when I went to Sydney. And when I go to places, I like to be around the Aboriginal people. I like to see where the black folks are. And I went to Sydney, and the Aboriginal people were just damn near killed off. They were just pushed into other parts of Australia. And the people there in Australia, the people in the dominant society, their attitude was very nonchalant and kind of embarrassed about it. When I would ask about where the Aborigines were, they kind of had this real suspicious look on their faces. And I said, okay, that's very interesting. People can create a system of genocide and just be so nonchalant about it. So I said, this was 2010. This is when I decided to do the Hidden Colors film, because I said, if they can act that way over there, they can do the same thing over here. So I kind of need to wake black folks up a little bit. And that was the genesis for the Hidden Colors films.
Wow, isn't that funny that I almost feel that as a black man in America, as a conscious black man, when you've woken up to the Matrix, it's almost like being born in the middle of a war. If you're born in the middle of a war, no matter what profession you choose, the struggle will always call you and suck you in.
Yeah.
Here you are. You were writing relationship books and doing very well at that. I was a finance professor. You know what I mean? I was in the white boy club, but yet that issue of race was almost like a gravitational pull that just sucks you in and lets you know that you got this other battle over here to fight. And in some ways it's been a wonderful experience, but in other ways, I think about what would my life have been like if I could have just been a normal person and just got my degree, taught my classes and just lived my life, But I think we have these experiences that, like the ones you mentioned, where we either experience the injustice directly or we witness the injustice or both, and you just realize, okay, this is a war we got to fight, So let me. I could talk to you all day, man. This has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot. Now I want to make sure everybody knows where the film is being released and when. And I don't know if you have the dates and cities in front of you, but I got them in front of me. So if you want me to, I can let people know.
Okay, yeah, I know there's going to be January 17th around the country. Also in London, too. It's going to be over in London. You can get the tickets at 7ammovie.com for showtimes. Also, it's going to be released in other cities January 22nd. And again, go to 7ammovie.com for all the details.
All right,
All right,
awesome,
awesome.
awesome. And I want everybody to know on the 17th, the cities I have listed here are New York and London, Chicago, which is great for me because I live in the Chi, Atlanta, St. Louis, and Memphis. And on the 22nd, I have L.A., D.C., Dallas, Philly, Detroit, Baltimore, Atlanta, Oakland. I want everybody to go to the website and buy a ticket, and go to the film. If you can't go to the film, go to the website and buy a ticket anyway. However many dollars it costs to buy the film. I don't know if the tickets are $5, $10, $20 or whatever. You know what? We're gonna spend 10 times that amount of money at Walmart, at the grocery store, and all these other places that will never give anything back to your community. So even if it's just a charitable donation and you don't live in any of these cities, just go there and buy a ticket to support this amazing project. And the film is called 7 a.m. and the creator is Jason Black. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And everybody, this is Mr. Tariq Nasheed. He is the creator of the groundbreaking film Hidden Colors, which I highly recommend. There's a part 1, 2, and 3, and I encourage you to go check him out. And let's all support each other. So I want to say thank you very much, brother. I truly appreciate your time.
Appreciate you having me on, brother. Big fan, Dr. Boyce. Big fan.
Hey, the feeling's mutual, man. This is definitely as exciting for me as anybody, man. Because I was joking with people about or I was joking with you about some of the videos you put online that I can't. I'm not even gonna sing the song because I don't want nobody to get on me about it. But it had me cracking up, man. And I respect what you're doing, man. So thank you so much for that. And everybody who's watching, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Financial Juneteenth. I appreciate you checking us out. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.